Guys, this is week 1 of your remote cooking lessons. We are going to do our braided calzones, and if you were in my life skills class, you have done this, and I do this in all my classes since I started teaching. So it's kind of fun for me to put this on YouTube and share it with my former students who will get to, have a refresher course and be able to make calzones that they made years ago. So I'm kind of excited about this remote learning today. All right, we're making a basic pizza dough, and then we're gonna transform it into a braided calzone in a little while. Basic ingredients for pizza dough, and I will attach the recipe into the classroom, but if you can follow along, you need 4 cups of flour in a mixing bowl. I have 3 cups in here, and I just want to refresh your memory about how to measure. You want to stir the flour and then dip the cup in, overfill it, and then make sure that it's nicely cut off, tapped off, and you're good to go. You want 4 cups of flour in here, and then you can actually move the flour out of your way. You're no longer going to use that. Okay, so all flour that we need will be pulled from this bowl. If we need more flour in our dough, if we need to dust the surface, if we need to knead more, all flour comes from this bowl. And 99.9% of the time, we will not use all this flour, okay? So listen to me very carefully there. The amount of flour needed for a yeast dough is dependent on temperature, really, the amount of humidity in the air, how warm it is, how you measured it, if you measured it correctly. So it's always an approximate. Your recipe will say 3 to 4 cups, and we measure the most in the recipe, and then we pull from whatever we need there. All right, then in your liquid measure, you're gonna measure 1 cup of warm water. Warm water for pizza dough is just tepid water. It's about the temperature of your body. What you would put for a baby bottle or bathe a baby in. Doesn't have to be a particular temperature, but if we were making cinnamon rolls or Italian bread, it might have an exact temperature, 105, 115. It could also be milk for like a sweet dough. But for our Italian pizza dough, it's water, just warm to the touch, and 1 cup. All right, then you're gonna pour in 1 whole packet of your yeast in here. I am using quick rise yeast. You can also get just active dry yeast. It might take a little bit longer. And when you stir this to dissolve it, it does have an odor. So if it smells a little funny, that's the way it's supposed to smell. And you might have to kind of mash it up to the size of the cup to get it dissolved. Yeast is a living organism, so we're gonna have to feed our yeast. We're gonna feed our yeast with a sugar. It takes a little bit of time here to dissolve this. The sugar that feeds the yeast can be in the form of any type of sugar, really. It can be white sugar, it could be a honey, it could be a molasses, depending on the flavor of the bread you're making. We are going to use white sugar. And then oh boy. We're also using 1 teaspoon of salt, and it goes right into the measurement. So our sugar goes in here to feed the yeast, and the salt goes in there to control the growth of the yeast. So we're feeding it, and yet we're trying to contain it so it doesn't go crazy. The last thing that we need is something to help with the stretchiness of the dough, the elasticity, the pliability, and that is our oil. And for your pizza dough, if you have it on hand, it's preferred to use extra virgin olive oil for the flavor. But if you have vegetable oil or canola oil, you can use those too. And this is a 2 tablespoon measurement. So you want 2 tablespoons here of your oil right into your liquid measure. So one thing you should notice in your mise en place is that everything except the flour went into my measuring cup. And if you only have a 1 cup measure, it will still fit in there. It'll just be at the very tip top of the brim, but it will work. All right, now it's simple. We just have to combine our flour with our liquid measuring cup in a big bowl, okay? So, I told you we're not gonna use all this flour, but I promise you, you will use half of it. So I literally just put my hand in here and scoop out half of the flour, okay, into your bowl. And then you wanna put your yeast, your salt, your sugar, your water, and your oil, and pour it right into your flour. And then we will take our wooden spoon and start stirring. Can you get into the bowl? Because this is very important. All right, so I have to teach you when to stop adding flour. So if you can just watch the bowl, I will help you determine when you have enough flour in there. Okay, notice I stir like a 5-year-old. My hand is straight up and down. I'm holding onto the spoon. This is good. Holding onto the bowl so it doesn't fly off the counter, and you stir straight up and down going in circles. We do not want the flour to be sticking to the bowl. So if it's sticking to the bowl, we add more flour. Let me rephrase that. We don't want the batter to be sticking to the bowl, okay? So we're gonna stir, 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 and you should see it combine onto my spoon and kind of clean all the edges and kind of just form into a ball and not be sticking. See how it's free from the bowl now? And my spoon's not really doing much good. Well, when your spoon's not doing much good, it's time to use our hands. Okay? It all formed onto my bowl, my spoon in a ball, and we're ready to start kneading. Okay. So let me just move these bowls out of the way here. In my flour bowl, I go ahead and I do a gracious amount of flour on the surface and on my hands. And today's a good day to make sure you have your hair up, your apron on. We're going to be touching our food, and you don't want to have to mess with anything in your face. Take your jewelry off. Of course, I don't take my jewelry off, but you should. Okay. You want to pat it around and get it well surfaced with flour so it's just not as sticky. And then when we knead, it is not gentle. Okay, we're going to build the gluten, the structure of the bread, and we're going to use the palm of our hand, and I'm going to teach you a few different ways to knead. And it's a push, turn, fold. Push, turn, fold. Okay. Some people like to knead with one hand and use the other hand to just turn it and incorporate the flour. Some people like to knead with 2 hands or alternate. All right, today you can think of something that makes you angry, like the coronavirus, and you can just pick it up and throw it down if you want. That's always fun to do. You can film yourself doing that, and I can watch it. That would be fun. And it should not stick to your hand. If it's sticking to your hand, like it is right here on mine, you need more flour. All right, now when you have it, and it's pretty, it's not light, it's pretty dense. To test your flour, to see your dough, to see if you need more flour, you can knead in the air, okay? And you knead in the air by pulling the dough backwards towards your hand back here. And as you do this, you can see, is this going to stick to my hand? Absolutely sticking to my hand. And now we can just add flour to the top of the surface and keep kneading it. And it can feel sticky slightly, but it should not stick to your hands at all. So my dough needs just a little bit more work. The recipe will say to knead this between 5 and 10 minutes. And what you're looking for is a smooth consistency that is kind of heavy. It's over a pound for sure. And as you knead it in the air, you can see that it is not cracking, because if it cracks, there's not much I can do. That means you've over-floured it, and it is not sticking to my hand anymore. All right, so this dough is perfect. You get it in like a nice ball here. And at home, since we're all at home, you should leave for this to rise between 30 and 60 minutes in a nice warm, warm, dry area, nice and dark. So you can put this back in the bowl, and let me go get a towel. Just grab a nice clean towel, stick this in here so it's nice and dark. And I'm gonna get back with you here in a little while and we'll see it rise.